State Blinken and Secretary of Defense Austin met with President Zelensky today in Kyiv. So basically, exactly what Boris Johnson did 2 weeks ago, except nothing like as inspiring. Here to react, Florida Congressman and U.S. Army veteran Mike Waltz. I mean, what did you make of this? Blinken and Austin secretly. I mean, it wasn't even. It was Zelensky that confirmed. Well, I don't think it's even been confirmed by our government. I mean, it's kind of feels very odd.
Well, they probably think to confirm the visit, it would be too provocative to Putin, too escalatory, and too offensive to Putin's sensibilities. So once again, we have the Europeans leading the way. We have Congress leading the way. Multiple members of Congress have gone. So I guess eventually the administration was shamed into it by sending some leaders to really stand in solidarity with Zelensky, who's been standing on the front line fighting from day one. But Steve, you know, what I want to know is when you have these high-level visits like this, you need to come with deliverables. Right. You mentioned Boris Johnson. He delivered anti-ship missiles that the Ukrainians have been begging for since last year, and we haven't provided. He delivered armored vehicles that we haven't provided. So what are they going to deliver? And from Blinken's standpoint, I would hope that he's finally going to get serious about sanctions. Cut off the Russian oil and gas loopholes that are in all of our sanctions, and go after the back doors with China, with Brazil, with South Africa. We can go down the list, and let's get serious about going after Putin's war machine. That's what I would hope their trip would be all about. But right now, it's just kind of radio silence.
It's very odd because, well, maybe it's not odd, but actually that's completely the wrong term. It's entirely predictable with these people because we saw it before with the Obama people. You know, they sort of, you know, it became a joke, didn't it, leading from behind. But, you know, that's really how they seem to think. It's the same team around him. That's how they seem to think about stuff. It's like, we're not going to really put anything at risk. We're not going to go out there. They really are. They believe in this stuff.
Yeah, well, look, when I was out there last year, every single request the Ukrainians made was met with a response from the White House too escalatory and too provocative. Now you have Putin demonstrating his newest, most modern ICBM that you can put a hypersonic on it that can defeat our defenses. And our response from the Biden administration has been to hide our capabilities. Yeah. Peace is kept by demonstrating your strength, by demonstrating that we have a nuclear arsenal too, and therefore you better not even think about using yours. But instead, we keep giving Putin more and more and more space to escalate. And finally, if we have our defense secretary out there, let's give Zelensky everything he needs to win. Instead, Steve, we're helping him play to a tie. Putin is going to gobble up everything he can in the East, go to the negotiating table, lick his wounds over the next 4 to 5 years, and then he's going to be back for more. We have to help Zelensky win once and for all.
Exactly. Well said. Congressman, great to see you as always. Thank you.
All right.
Now, here's an amazing recent story about Ukraine that was almost entirely buried by the pro-China establishment media. According to Ukrainian intelligence, China launched a series of cyber attacks against Ukraine's military and nuclear infrastructure just days before Russia's invasion, which, as we know, Putin delayed at Xi Jinping's request so it wouldn't rain on his Olympics parade. All of this makes it absolutely clear that China is in fact a co-aggressor in Putin's war and complicit in his war crimes. And we have further evidence of that in the form of China's state media defending Russia's war crimes in Bucha, claiming that there's, quote, definitive evidence that the scores of mass graves in Bucha were a hoax. Let's turn now to those great champions of morality who can always be counted on to stand up for human rights and progressive values, the virtue-signaling CEOs of corporate America. Now we know that China is complicit in war crimes and genocide. On top of carrying out its very own genocide, have the woke CEOs tweeted, released any statements, perhaps put out some catchy hashtag to rebuke dictator Xi? I guess they're all pulling out of China because, you know, their values. Oh. So they're still in China. Disney, still in China. Apple, still in China. Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Goldman Sachs, the whole rotten, hypocritical crew. So they'll boycott Georgia or Florida or anyone else in America over misinformation pushed by far-left woke activists. But they're perfectly happy doing business with a brutal authoritarian regime that's now supporting and enabling some of the most despicable war crimes we've seen in more than 70 years. Just when you think corporate America can't sink any lower, they do. And here's the truth. Corporate America's Russia boycotts, the Biden regime's endlessly trumpeted sanctions, none of it will make any difference unless we boycott and sanction our real enemy, China. Here with the reaction is the author of America Second, How America's Elites Are Making China Stronger, Isaac Stone Fish. Great to see you. I've been reading your book and the way you lay it all out. I love your take on this. What do you make of this total double standard that the establishment, the elites, corporate and political and media apply when it comes to China's involvement in this war?
For so long, American CEOs thought that what happened in China could stay in China and that people wouldn't realize the ways that they were partnering with the Chinese Communist Party. Luckily, that narrative is now shifting and Americans are waking up to what American firms have been doing in China over the last several decades.
But is anything going to change? Do you see, you lay out in such gruesome detail the way they've enabled China's rise. I mean, they're so sort of tangled up in China in every way. Do you see anything actually changing?
I do. So in my book, America Second, I feel pretty optimistic about the really bipartisan awakening that so many Americans from so many different walks of life have been having about the situation with American elite in China and ways that they can push back without being McCarthyist and without being racist.
So tell us more about those.
So the ways are, first, focus on the corruption. I like how you're focusing on American CEOs as opposed to looking at Chinese or Chinese Americans in the United States. I think a lot of better regulation against former U.S. top officials, Henry Kissinger, Madeleine Albright, Brent Scowcroft, names that are really big picture names in D.C., being able to leave office and then go lobby for American companies working more in China. And certainly a lot has to change in Hollywood, where so many studios are so entangled with the Communist Party in ways that are very detrimental to U.S. interests.
So what can someone watching now do? I mean, I think a lot of people are really angry about this. What can they do?
I think they should be, and I think speaking out is really important. I think also, though, I will make a very serious plea. Don't take out your anger against Chinese or Chinese Americans. Doing that is wrong for ethical and strategic reasons. You're really giving Beijing a win if you do that, because you're allowing Beijing to say, hey, Chinese people globally, we are the only ones who can protect you. So fight against the regime, fight against the party, but make sure that it's geared against the party and not Chinese or Chinese Americans. I
completely agree. I'm very pleased you put it like that. I think that's incredibly important, and I think most, I think most people do see this incredibly deep connection between the establishment here, as you say. You've helped reveal that in your book. It is coming to light, but I think we got to fight back harder, and you're part of that, Isaac. And I really appreciate meeting you tonight, and I encourage everyone to buy your book. Great to see you. Thank you. Much more up ahead.